Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another market analysis for the month of October. Now, we'll sit down because we got a lot to talk about today. From an enormous market crash that happened at the beginning of October to an item that has gone up almost 40 times in value in just a week, there has been a lot of interesting things happening in the RuneScape economy this month. Normally, I make one of these videos every couple weeks or every month, but there was just a lot to talk about. It seemed like it was time for another update. So we're going to be covering those stories as well as anything else interesting in the OSRS economy this month. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, if you do enjoy the video, always appreciate a like on it. For every like I get on this video, I will do one jumping jack in old school RuneScape. Thanks for watching, guys, and let's get started. Now, to start us off here, I want to have a look at one of the most interesting things that happened in the RuneScape economy in October so far. So we're going to be looking at a specific item here, the Gilded Dhide body. This item actually went completely ballistic this month, and there's a reason why, which we'll explain in a minute here. So historically, this item has ranged usually somewhere between 1 and 2 mil for the last year or so. But near the end of October, something completely insane happened. It jumped up from around 1 mil each all the way up to 40 mil just in 1 week, which is probably one of the largest price increases I've ever seen. To put that in perspective, that's like the Din's Bulwark going from 10 mil up to 400 mil in just 1 week. Kind of crazy. Now, since then, it has settled at around 5 or 6 mil, still significantly higher, but what exactly happened here? Well, there's one obvious clue here, and that would be the game update here. Right after the wilderness and equipment rebalancing changes, this item shot up over 40 times in value. Now, the main reason that this shot up so quickly is because Gilded Dhide bodies are accessible in free-to-play. Now, when the equipment rebalance came through, Jagex nerfed Black Dhide, and of course that was the most noteworthy one, but they also nerfed all of the other Dhide sets as well, including the Green Dhide body. So the Green Dhide body had its defensive stats nerfed significantly. For example, the stab defense going from 40 down to 18, the crush defense dropping significantly, and the range defense also dropping a bit. So Green Dhide got significantly nerfed, but Gilded Dhide is unchanged. Now essentially what this means is the Gilded Dhide body is now the best in slot ranged top. There is nothing else on this level. It is objectively the strongest ranged top in free-to-play. Now, because this item is so rare and only obtainable from Elite and Master clues, it jumped up significantly. Think about that, a clue scroll item that's only available for Masters is now best in slot. Like, imagine if they did that to the 3rd Age Druidic top. That thing would be worth 10, 20, 30 bill or something. It would just be completely ridiculous, but essentially that's what happened in free-to-play, just to a smaller scale. So that caused a tremendous amount of hype that bumped it up almost 40 times in value, but we now know that it did not continue up at such a colossal rate. It dropped pretty much right back down again. And I think there's a few reasons why. First up, it's only stronger defensively, which in a lot of cases doesn't matter. For PvM, free-to-play just really doesn't have that many strong monsters to fight. In PvP, if it gets too expensive, it's just not going to be worth risking. So although it is an incredibly rare item that is now best in slot, its utility is not quite as high as you would imagine, which is why I think it's not worth 40 mil. But still an incredibly fascinating story to me. Alright, so now I want to move on to the market as a whole, because during the last week we have seen a gigantic market crash. A lot of high-end expensive items specifically lost a ton of value this week, and I mean, there's one realistic explanation for this, that is group Ironman. Now, normally when seasonal game modes come to old school, the main game economy will suffer, at least if you have those items, I suppose. If you're looking to buy items, I guess is a good thing. The general logic goes that when players are playing a seasonal game mode, they're not playing their main account, and often players will sell off their more expensive items until they need them again. It's somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy because most people are just worried about their items losing value while they go play the seasonal game mode, which causes them to sell, which causes the item value to decrease. Now, just to give you a really good example of this being the case, let's have a look at the Harmonized Orb. Now, yeah, the Harmonized Orb has been dropping for a while, but if we go back and have a look at the week view on GE Tracker, we can see pretty much exactly when Group Ironman came out, it dropped significantly. Just hours after it came out, it dropped from 740 mil down to 680 mil, just in a few hours, which is a gigantic decrease. And we can see down here the purple orb is, well, that's the Group Ironman update. So there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that this market crash is caused by Group Ironman. But looking at a couple other items here, we have the Twisted Bow, which same thing. It immediately dropped from 840 mil down to 800 mil just in a few hours. It has since bounced back a bit though. We had the Scythe that dropped from around 480 mil down to a low of around 425 mil. We have the Bow of Ferdinand dropping from 180 mil down to 170 mil. Obviously, some items were affected more than others. Pretty much everything dropped when Group Ironman came out or leading up to its release. Now, unlike leagues, Group Ironman might have a more sustained effect on the economy, and that's because it's not a seasonal game mode exactly. It's simply just a new game mode. A ton of players have started playing Group Ironman, but unlike leagues where it'll be done in a month, Group Ironman could go on, indefinitely. Sure, people will burn out and come back to the main game eventually, but it's a permanent game mode and an Ironman game mode, which means players may not have need for their main account items for quite a while. So demand for those items could be lower for a significant amount of time. That said, we do have some PVM updates coming up soon. I'm sure the next update, if it does indeed pass, will probably boost things back up again. But yeah, Group Ironman actually had a very significant effect, and one that is fairly pronounced and easy to see. Now, the effect Group Ironman is having on the economy is not just on PVM items. Other less expensive resource items have also been affected. For example, here we have Blood Runes, which have dropped a ton this week. Before the Group Ironman update, they were worth around 420 each. Now they are worth 370. So they've dropped 50 GP in just a week, which is significant. Now, Blood Runes are obviously heavily used in PVM, so with less demand for main game PVM, Blood Runes have lost a lot of demand. Another similar item we have is Renar Weeb, which of course has turned into prayer potions. Less demand for prayer potions has dropped the price of Renar from 7,500 down to around 7,000, so a 500 GP drop on Renars. Fairly notable. Super Restore is obviously the same thing. Now moving on now to another specific item here. Last week we were tracking the Din's Bulwark and the Justiciar armor set, and I've been really curious to see what the price will level out at. Well, now that it has been a couple weeks since the update, we can now look at the Din's Bulwark, and it is leveled off at 10 mil. Now obviously the Din's Bulwark ended up being a lot stronger after its nerf, that's in air quotes, than a lot of people I think anticipated, and that's why it jumped up so quickly. However, after only 2 weeks, it looks like it's settling maybe double what it was worth before, which is definitely quite a bit higher, but it's no Dragon Hunter crossbow. It does seem, just based on the pricing information, that the use cases for the Bulwark are still fairly niche, even though it does appear to be stronger than before and somewhat unique. Now, because the Din's Bulwark becomes stronger with higher defensive stats, the Justiciar jumped up in value a ton as well. Most people who are using the Din's Bulwark are using Justiciars, so one goes up, the other one will too, and vice versa. So the entire Justiciar set peaked at I think around 60 mil, and now it is going down with the Bulwark, which is not surprising. Now personally, I don't think this necessarily has to be the Bulwark's final resting place. Even though it's been a couple weeks now, players are still getting used to it. Now that the Bulwark has a very unique identity, new content that comes out in the future I think could very well utilize the Bulwark, which even if one new piece of content requires you to use the Bulwark, or the Bulwark is nearly best in slot, this thing is going to go up so quickly because of course it is a raid item and not a very common one. Now finally, as always, I like to have a look at bonds. However, this week is a little more interesting than normal because of course we do have a few updates that could significantly affect bonds. The big update of course being Group Ironman. A lot of players are making new accounts. Generally means the demand for bonds has gone up. On top of that, Ironman are now able to buy bonds, which theoretically should increase demand as well. Now with that said, there hasn't really been that pronounced of an effect on the price of bonds. Realistically, it's just on a fairly similar trend that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 months. Nothing too new, but honestly I don't think there has been as big of an impact yet. Now I think obviously the biggest explanation is nobody can afford bonds yet on a Group Ironman account, and probably won't be able to or will even want to for a significant amount of time, if any. So although initially I thought bonds were going to jump up, upon thinking about it more and looking at the reality of the situation, nothing much has changed. Now with that said, I am very curious to see what the price of bonds will be at the end of the year. My guess will probably be 7 mil. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Now before I go here, I want to give a massive thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thanks so much to Sejuani's Flail, The Hybrid, Guy Fox, Timothy Chen, Ocelot, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. You guys, it honestly means so much. You guys are willing to support me that much. Thank you. Also, a giant thank you to Base Titch, Mexos, NDM001, and Yo-Yo Sub 89 for being subscribed at the Runite tier. As always, if you guys are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is an awesome way to do so. Mainly, you'll be immortalized in all of my future videos, but you also get a custom role in my Discord server, as well as access to my video release schedule. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time.